we've turned Geoff into a full-on degenerate.
Yes.
Like, we got him betting women's basketball, spring training baseball. Like, Geoff, did you bet all day on Tuesday, like from 11 a.m. till the end of the night?
I've looked up. I've bet on 8 spring. Will sent over 8 spring training games over the last week.
Good night, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Bear Bets Podcast. I am here. Geoff is here. We'll be joined by our special guest momentarily. But how'd the off week treat you, Geoff?
It was good. I was just immersed in all the things that we wager on Bear. I think people, if they don't realize that we actually say we're wagering on things, then we do it. What are we up to, Bear? I looked today. We've 8 spring training games we've wagered on so far. I don't know if you've wagered on all 8 of them. They've been sent over.
I did not. I missed the Astros yesterday, and of course that one won, and I played the Mariners last night, and of course that one lost.
We have unders in Missouri Valley Conference today.
I didn't play that. Well. I missed the best numbers, so I did not get involved there.
Good for you. You're probably going to hit that one.
You guys are going to need some help, I think.
We got women's college basketball. I mean, we're doing it all, but we have football today. We'll have some baseball previews today. We'll have some college basketball as well as we get deep into a tournament season. We have the sort of mid-majors this week, and we have the big dogs next week, and then, of course, the tournament after that. So much to get into. It's a great time of year. Even though I know football's not on, whatnot, there's still plenty to wager on, guys, and I hope you do it with us.
Oh, no, this is a great time of the year. We got
golf too.
Golf is now the East Coast swing. Masters is a month away. NCAA Tournament, like you said. Indian Wells tennis, the quote unquote fifth major, fifth Grand Slam on the tennis tour is going on this week. Of course, we've got a Champions League, Europa Conference League, Europa League. I just fired in a little Copenhagen under a half team total against Chelsea in the second half. So hopefully by the time we're done recording here, I will be a winner, but I could be a loser. But we have a winner joining us on Bear Bets this week to break down some of the news and notes and the steam that came out of the NFL Combine last week. We all love to bet the draft. Not a ton of markets up yet, but here to help us kind of with some information to help us make some bets when those markets do come out is our Fox Sports NFL reporter, Greg Auman. Greg, appreciate you taking the time to join us this week. And so we all have this little cottage industry of betting the draft, following the combine, following all the steam. But what would you say were the biggest couple of headlines to come out of Indy last week?
Yeah, I think everybody's trying to figure out where these quarterbacks will shake out. I mean, a year ago, there was so much talk, 6 quarterbacks in the top half of the draft kind of spoiled everybody. And maybe this isn't that kind of year. I think Cam Ward's kind of solidified himself as the top option. But definitely not a lot of buzz around Shedeur Sanders. Wondering where he fits in. Wondering if there's a third quarterback that could sneak into the end of the first round, maybe. But kind of a down year. I mean, we forget, I think what happened last year with so many great quarterbacks at the top of the draft, and then going back to C.J. Stroud. You go back 3 years, you get Kenny Pickett, and that's the only first round pick, and he kind of disappointed even. So
Super Bowl champion Kenny Pickett, by the way.
Yeah,
these teams that don't have quarterbacks will overpay and overdraft and overspend to get them. So I think you'll still see Cam Ward real high, but I wonder where the rest of the quarterbacks will shake out.
So let's talk about Sanders, because we're going to have markets that pop up at some point about team to draft Sanders, over under draft slot, things like that. And coming out of the combine, there are a lot of mock drafts are dropping, and Sanders is at 20, 22, somewhere like that. Now, of course, the Giants might be desperate at 3. So might be the Browns, who just cleared space with Deshaun Watson's contract. But where do you stand on Sanders? Because it feels like teams either love him or don't like him, or there's no in between.
Yeah, I'm honestly probably in between. I don't love him. I don't know that he's in that same tier of being a top 5 pick. It's interesting. I mean, it's one of those where I think so much momentum goes one way or the other. So post-combine, there's definitely a negative momentum around him. I mean, you got unnamed coaches and unnamed scouts talking about him being arrogant, too confident. Again, this is Deion Sanders' son. So I think we knew confidence was going to be pretty good there. But no, it's one of those where I think, we'll let free agency shake out. That will definitely let some teams address or try to address their quarterback needs. This isn't a great year there either. I mean, there's a lot of guys that are second-tier quarterbacks. Maybe you can trade to get somebody out of a bad contract, but there's not a lot of great options there. So if you don't have a quarterback, that might make Shedeur Sanders look better. And that, you're looking at going with guys that were cast off, were in, contract. They're pretty much available only because they were in a bad contract and their team has moved on. But no, I'm not completely down on him. Like you said, he could go 6, he could go 3. It wouldn't surprise me at all. But I think that has more to do with the desperation and the need for a quarterback than it does his individual talent.
It's interesting because I saw a tweet on social media, obviously a tweet on Twitter. We could figure that. But another one of the unnamed scouts saying that in terms of like talent and where they should go, like you're looking at Ward and Sanders being like second or third round picks, but people always are going to overdraft. I want to ask you, because they will ultimately post a number of quarterback prop to be taken in the first round. I don't know if they're going to post 1.5. I don't know if they're going to post 2.5. What do you think is more likely to go? 2 quarterbacks in the first round, 3 quarterbacks in the first round, or let's get crazy and say 4, because between now and the time they run those cards up in Green Bay, there's going to be a lot of Jackson Dart hype. There's going to be some Tyler Shuck hype. They're going to compare him to Bo Nix. Oh, he's an older quarterback. Like, do we think there's like a chance we could see both Dart and Shuck maybe go in the first round and we ultimately could wind up with 4?
Yeah, I think any line over 2.5 is a high line. I mean, I think that's probably we put the line right now, because I think everyone thinks that no matter what, that Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders are in the first round. And I think that would be a big surprise. That would be someone falling drastically from consensus expectations. So the question is, does Jackson Dart sneak in at 32? Does somebody try and get that 5th-year option? Isn't quite the bargain it used to be. Because if these guys play well, it winds up pretty much being a franchise tag at the end of year 4. But no, I think that's reasonable. If there's another guy besides Jackson Dart that sneaks into round 1, I'd be surprised. You mentioned Tyler. There's other guys that are good quarterbacks that I still think are probably day 2 quarterbacks right now.
The Giants need a quarterback. They wanted Matt Stafford. I supposedly had the deal in place that the Rams would have wanted, but Stafford, I think, smartly decided to stay in Los Angeles. They might send Aaron Rodgers. Kirk Cousins, I feel like, is an option for them if he gets released by the Falcons. But are the Giants trading up to 1? Because it does feel like they cannot leave the end of April with no franchise quarterback. It's about even money right now for them to draft number 1 overall. Obviously, have to trade up for that pick. Do you see them doing that?
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all. I don't know that there's going to be a free agent option for them. The fact that they're talking about Aaron Rodgers speaks to the place that they're in and the desperation they're in to get there. It doesn't cost that much to go from 3 to 1. I think it probably would be their 1 and their 2 this year. Okay, so you're talking about number 3, and I think it's 37, I think, is their second pick. Probably next year's 2 or 3, and that should get it done. And I mean, you have to feel good about what you're getting.
If I'm the Titans, I'm taking that and running.
Right, because if you're the Titans, you take that, you still get Abdul Carter at 3. If another quarterback goes 2, worst scenario, you got Travis Hunter at 3. So you've gotten a guy you could have got at number 1 overall. You're paying him less, and you have a second-round pick and another pick to show for it. I think it makes a lot of sense for both sides.
What are the odds then, like the chances that you think the Titans take Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders? Like, I mean, this is still a team that needs a quarterback.
Oh, no, they need a quarterback. And I mean, I think the odds will clear out if free agency comes and goes and they haven't done anything yet. Because, I mean, if they have to have something and they can't go into year 2 with Will Levis as the answer, they won't be there for next year if that's the case. So they'll take some kind of action as a quarterback. So we just have to see whether they get involved with some of these veteran types that are there and will be had and probably won't even be necessarily that expensive by quarterback standards. Do they have a half measure there, or do they leave things open? And if they leave things open, they don't have an answer. That probably points to them taking a quarterback. Again, we don't know how they feel. I mean, we know the need is there and we know what their options are, but I don't know that we've gotten a great sense as to whether they're completely enamored with Cam Ward, like a lot of teams are, and would be comfortable turning the franchise over to him. You take a guy number 1 overall, you're putting your fate in his hands. So they have to believe that. There's not a lot of quarterbacks they can get right now that would be inspiring that much confidence to do better than that. You know, at least with the first number 1 overall pick, you buy yourself some runway. You're starting with a rookie. It puts a tempered expectation on how much you get out of him right away. But I think there's an excitement around Cam Ward right now, where if he were the number 1 overall pick, That wouldn't surprise me. And it's, if you think about needs, it would be first and foremost that the Titans need a quarterback. It's just whether they think he's the guy.
So team that will draft Travis Hunter, who is the Colorado slash. I think he's more of a corner than wide receiver, but some of them as a wide receiver instead of a corner. I think most teams will have him graded number one on their big board, but that doesn't mean he goes number one overall. Right now, the Patriots are the favorite, then the Giants, then Tennessee, then Jacksonville, and then Cleveland. I don't think he gets to 5, so probably one of those top 4 teams here. Giants, I think, need a quarterback, so they're out. Is it sort of New England or Tennessee if they trade back, ends up with Travis? I don't think the Browns are going to take him at 2 either.
No, those are the two that make sense. You see him at 4, and it feels like great value. If you're the Pats and you can stay at 4,
yes,
and get him, regardless of which side you see him on. I agree. I think he's a corner first and foremost. I think he can dabble on offense and make some plays on offense. But no, I think it's great to have him and Christian Gonzalez as a young 1-2 at corner. That's great, and they're inexpensive on rookie deals for another 2 years.
Yeah, and you got a quarterback on a rookie contract as well, which is nice. It's going to be curious because I know what he gets drafted at, like what the commissioner announces him as the draft pick on draft night, a cornerback or receiver, because that could affect potentially who is the first defensive player maybe off the board. There could be some interesting
That's true.
bet ramifications in how they designate him on draft night on the card. It's funny, you mentioned the Giants with Aaron Rodgers, and just being a Jets fan and knowing and growing up in New York and knowing that market, like I just laugh at the notion of like the Giants being interested in Aaron Rodgers. Like there's no way after the botched offseason of last year, like the Maras are going to sign like the Jets like hand-me-downs.
They're
like,
so
I
desperate,
can't see
Bear.
that at all.
They're so desperate. Multiple. I'm telling you that they are seriously considering Aaron Rodgers. They're so desperate for anything. They have to save their jobs. He doesn't feel like a Giant. I agree. He's like the most anti-Giant ever, Greg. But I think they're that desperate. I think they have one quarterback on the roster right now. And the 3 of us could probably play just as well as Tommy DeVito can on NFL Sunday. Like there's no one on their roster.
Right. And question is, when you have a coach and a GM that are on their last year, are they looking out for the team's long-term interest, or are they just trying to keep their jobs for another year? You can't really fault them to let survival mode kick in. And that would probably be going with a more known commodity, even if it's somebody. We talk about evaluating the way up, and there's evaluating the way down. And Aaron Rodgers is definitely a case of what does he have left? How motivated is he going to be? If you get him, do you have to now sign Devontae Adams? Do you now have to bring in other people as well? It's definitely more complicated with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. But I don't know how much they have in terms of other options and what they can be excited about among the veterans they could get.
What does the Deshaun Watson contract restructuring? I guess they gain like $36 million in some cap space. How does that affect, or does it affect what they may do at 2? Like you could make I could make a case or an argument that maybe the Browns drafting a quarterback at 2 who doesn't necessarily have to play this year might not be a bad thing. I don't know if either one of those guys I would want to take it to, but it's not the worst move in the world maybe for the Browns to think quarterback, because it's still a team that, I mean, depth chart wise is pretty good. It just were inundated by every bit of bad luck and poor quarterback play last year. Like how do we think the Watson contract restructuring might affect what they might be doing it too?
Yeah, I agree with you, Baron, that I think if you're upside down, if you're underwater on a contract as badly as they are with Deshaun Watson, where you have so much money tied up in someone who's not helping you, an easy way to get around that is to have a cheap quarterback, to take a quarterback at 2, it might be Sanders at 2 if Ward goes 1. That way you're not having to worry about paying the actual starting quarterback. It's like 4 years, $30 million nowadays for a young rookie like that. So what the reworking of the contract does is it gives them a lot more flexibility this year in terms of being able to bring in supporting members, being able to keep their own as much as they want to. It's bad long term. I mean, they've already got, it'll be $50 million in dead money at the end of this Deshaun Watson contract, or when he's done after the 26th season, there's still $50 million in cap burden that's a result of them reworking this deal 3 times now just to give them more flexibility. It's bad in real time, but it'll be bad posthumously even after he's out of uniform and off the books.
Let's talk Aston Genty. There's odds up for him. Which team will draft him? It does feel like, as of now, it's sort of a two-team race between the Raiders and now the Bears have more flexibility with a deal for Joe Thuney. What's the word out of Indy with him? Because the Hampton kid from North Carolina can scoot too, and I feel like this draft with the running backs maybe taking one in the first round, you could get one in the second round or third round or fourth round that's just as impactful. No slight to Genty, of course, but maybe you want to go defensive line early in this draft, take a running back in the second round.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if there's more than two in the first round. Those are the two names in Genty and in Omari. Those two easily could be first rounders. If there's anybody else, it surprised me a little bit, honestly. You're talking about, when you think about the guys that are in that next tier, you could go Ohio State. Both backs from there have looked good, whether it's Judkins, whether it's Trevion Henderson. Scatterbo is a fun name. I mean, Cam Scatterbo is a guy that I think will get a lot of buzz.
He ran fast though, right?
The draft, last 5 picks of the first round, first 5 picks of the second round. That wouldn't surprise me at all. But as far as an over/under, you probably set it at 1.5 right now, and then you just figure whether or not Amari Hampton is that second guy in round 1.
Yeah, I would probably think that he would go. I know there are some people out there who have said that they actually like Hampton more than they do Genty, and they worry about maybe Genty being so. It's kind of weird to say, but his production, so much of it were these big plays that you're maybe not going to get those types of big plays against an NFL defense. And I don't know, but I probably if you post 1.5, I will. I'll be happy to bet the over there on that one.
Those two remind me a little bit of 2 years ago when Bijan Robinson had all the buzz and all the star acclaim in college and was everybody's best back going into the draft, and has been a great back in the NFL. And Jahmyr Gibbs, I think a lot of people were really surprised when Detroit took him as high as they did, and he certainly made good on that pick. I mean, I think Hampton could be that guy that you don't realize is such a strong second back in the class that could go drafted higher and also performing higher than people realize.
Yeah, I love the fact that the Lions hit on him. I mean, that was like the chuckle of draft night. I remember that night. The Lions are taking a running back at whatever it was, 12 or 14, whatever, and it worked out. Now he's not arguably, he's one of the biggest weapons in the game. Was there someone, every year it seems like there's a player that maybe turns heads and wows people at the combine, works out great, interviews great. Maybe he wasn't seen as a first-round pick. Ultimately, they're going to post draft position prices and positions for a lot of these players. Is there someone maybe that wasn't necessarily thought of as a first-round pick a couple weeks back that coming out of Indy now might be seen as a first-rounder?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and guys can move up too. I mean, sometimes I think it's more just awareness and us outside realizing who somebody is or realizing how well-liked somebody is. Shamar Stewart helped himself a lot, posted some really good numbers where I think there could be a ton of edges. I mean, the middle of the draft, the teens of these picks, see a real run on edges in terms of 4 or 5 guys being gone by pick 20 even. And I think he's right in the middle of that group. I think Jahdae Barron is a versatile, super athletic defensive back, moved up and helped himself there. I mean, I think offensive line. I mean, I think, Gray Zabel's a guy that people talked about in Mobile and really liked in Mobile, is validating himself as a late first-round pick. He's helped himself there too. Those are names that pop out right away. I mean, I think this is a draft where we're still figuring out the back half of the draft. I mean, that second half, you'll see guys that are omitted entirely. There's offensive linemen you'll see that go top 10, and then they drop into the 20s in somebody else's mock draft. Some of these best offensive linemen in the draft, we don't know. Are they a guard or a tackle? Could they snap? I think versatility is a good thing, but also makes it harder to project. One team might see him as a guard, one team might see him as a tackle. So
we're going to get basically exactas at some point, right? Team to draft certain position in the position market, okay? I like 2 so far, and tell me if I'm crazy. Again, they're not up yet, but we'll see. I think the Colts are taking a tight end. Loveland or Warren, I don't care who's there. Like, they're taking one of those 2. And to me, the Chiefs are taking a defensive tackle at 31. Like, I think those are like set in stone. Could I wager on those when those markets open up, the exacta between sort of position and team they're going to?
Yeah, I mean, that's the most, when you look at mocks and you see pairings and just default, this makes sense. Colts at 14 with the tight end, it feels like 3/4 of mock drafts right now. I don't know that Warren will be there. I think Lovin will be there if Warren is, and Tyler Warren's going to be great. I mean, I think to see he's not Brock Bowers. I'm not saying that, but to see the impact and the reach, 150 targets as a rookie that you see from Brock Bowers. Tyler Warren had 104 catches this year in college.
He was good.
1,000 yards, double-digit touchdowns. Just prolific pass catcher who can be that right away at the next level. If you're Indy, whether it's Anthony Richardson or not, if you're trying to give him somebody that's somebody he can trust, somebody he can go to, that safety valve, that option you can go to and get yardage and move the chains, he could be that for them for sure.
Yeah, I think Colts tight end and Seahawks offensive lineman are probably the ones you're gonna look every mock. Someone told me that the Seahawks, I think, interviewed 17 offensive linemen when they were 17 or 20, was something ridiculous.
Not surprising.
They like that. I mean, clearly a major need for them. Greg, where can we find you? What you got cooking? What can our people look forward to leading up to the draft?
Yeah, everything I write's at foxsports.com. Just had something we just went up on potential trade partners for the Titans and where they might go and what it might take to get to number one overall. We continue to update our top 100 free agent list, both in guys coming off, getting signed, and also guys getting cut and joining in. So we added in Devontae Adams. We added in, later on, Joey Bosa gets on the list as well. So keeping busy with that. This is one of those days where nowadays there's 15, 20 NFL transactions every day where guys are getting signed ahead of free agency, guys are getting cut to make room. So real busy with that. And that's going to keep me busy here at least the next week or two.
Perfect. Well, stay busy because we'll be reading, we'll be looking and needing all the potential information that we can to stay informed and make some bets once our friendly's neighborhood sports books post some odds that we can bet into. Greg, appreciate you. Great stuff. And we'll talk again soon.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate Greg for joining us earlier. And now kick around some of the stuff that Geoff and I discussed with Greg, with our stalwarts, the people that you really want to hear from, Sammy P and Will Hill in the gambling group chat. You're tired of Geoff, you're tired of me, but these are the guys who are going to make you some money. So we're kicking around a lot of NFL draft chatter because really, I mean, you guys know there really isn't anything out there in terms of markets. You can bet you can bet who will be the number one pick. You bet who will make the number one pick. What team might Ashton Genty go to? What team might Travis Hunter go to? That's literally like all I've seen out there. Sammy, I guess I'll start with you. If you had to make a bet right now on who would be the number one pick, Cam Ward the favorite, I guess Abdul Carter is the second choice. Who would it be at the numbers that are currently available?
Well, thanks for having us, Bear. I heard John Fanta said no, so that's why Will and I are back in the mix. We appreciate that. I don't know that it's a bettable market at this point in time, but I'm hearing conflicting reports on Abdul Carter. There are some teams that are not worried about his injury. They think it's an 8-week deal, nothing major long-term, nothing that will linger. Other teams are nervous. As we know in this market, it just takes one to come up and get him, or in Tennessee, maybe draft a generational defensive player for the first time in a long time. So at 2-1, give or take, I don't think that's the worst idea. I'm just not high on the quarterbacks, and I don't expect this horse race for teams to trade up to number one to draft a quarterback, and that would put me on Carter.
It's funny you mentioned the markets that are available, Bear, because I just happen to be looking now and I see the same markets you're mentioning. So I think you had an ace up your sleeve when you were looking at these markets, as I'm looking at these markets too. I will say, I'll just throw a name and a number out there. Shedeur Sanders, 12-1 to be the first pick. There's been a lot of buzz, negative wise. He's brash. He's this, he's that. I understand all of that, but how much of that is smoke? How much of that is really going to matter? How much of that is just reports? I mean, what was it 2 years ago with Stroud? He didn't do well on the test. He didn't do well on that. And eventually he ended up being the second pick in the draft, went way higher than people thought, where people thought he was going to slip maybe out of the top 10. I mean, some of these pre-draft stories can get crazy. I just think you look at the accuracy, the turnover-worthy plays, all the advanced stuff, he's better than Ward. And if the Giants get desperate where we couldn't get Stafford, Shane and Dave will look at it like, man, we need to keep our jobs. We need to figure out a way to get some buzz, keep our jobs. We can't just roll out the team we have. We got some decent parts with Neighbors, and running back was decent. We got a front four. Let's just go for our quarterback and trade up to get the first pick. To me, Sanders at 12-1, I think, is one where even if he's not the first pick, I wouldn't be shocked if a week or two before the draft, it's like it's down to Sanders and Ward and it's a coin flip and you can maybe buy back. So to me, just in terms of a number grab here, maybe it's an overreaction on Sanders falling and maybe he's got a shot at 12-1. And look, if he goes in the 20s, it doesn't matter if he goes 2 or 27 if he falls all the way down. You're either going to win or you lose your bet. I think there's still some value here on the 12-1.
And then the number of offensive lines in the Power Four that were worse than Colorado's over the last couple of years, you can probably count on one hand. It was a brutal offensive line, Geoff.
It was bad, but I would be stunned if he went number 1 overall. I mean, I think that the discussion comes down to basically upside, right? And Sanders does make more pro throws at times than Cam Ward does. I think he might be better in the pocket now, but I think what you get with Sanders is what you get with him. I think Cam Ward has the high upside of being a better athlete, essentially. And look, Cam Ward did not grow up in the same football household that Sanders did. I mean, Sanders looks like a guy who's been coached to play quarterback a long time. Remember, Cam Ward did not throw the ball in high school. He went to Incarnate Word, basically played 2 seasons in 1 year because of a weird COVID thing that they did at that level, and then went to Wazoo and played a run and shoot for 2 years, then went to Miami and played more in a quote-unquote pro-style-ish offense. So I just think there's more upside to Cam Ward, where if you're Tennessee or you're the Giants and you have a chance to draft the player at number 1, and you probably go more upside with Ward than you do with Sanders. To me, Sanders is such a wild card in this draft. I mean, we talked about it with Greg, guys. Their team's going to look at him and say, absolutely not. Teams look at him and say, yeah, we're fine with it. I mean, he's Deion's son. Like, he's going to have a little bit of confidence. Like, come on. That's what I think you want a quarterback anyways. I'll tell you one thing of watching more Colorado offense. They are going to be a very big fade team for me in 2025. They lost their quarterback, their 4 wide receivers. Their offensive scheme is atrocious. And they bring back the OC with a new quarterback from Liberty. And I just telling you right now, it's going to be a rough offense. I mean, Sanders and Hunter made that offense go with some of those wide receivers, and they're gone now.
Can we clip that for social media?
I just thought I had. Give me the Buffs under for this year. It's not the podcast for that, guys. I'm just telling you what I'm thinking ahead.
You said it.
I did. I'm going to say it again when we get to college football this season.
I'm going to say it again. I'm going to say it again until I mean
like
it. They're going to hear
he's
me.
got that jersey on. It's like it's Jersey Jeff. He's got that. It's like he's got the invisible jersey on. He's feisty. I like it.
I watched a lot of Colorado.
I was going to say that, exactly. A little cross check in the corner. So all right. So Ward is like, I've seen in the places that you can bet this, like minus 270, minus 290 or whatever to be the number 1 pick. If the book of Sammy were to post a prop, you can figure out what the no price would be on a yes, no. Would Cam Ward be the number 1 pick? Yes or no? You're betting yes or you're betting no? You're betting no. You're betting no, Sammy, right?
Yeah, I'd bet the no, especially at plus money. But I don't think anybody's going to do that. And I've scoured over all the apps and made texts and phone calls to Vegas, and nobody's booking anything on this draft. I think they're finally terrified enough to just wait as long as possible, because these guys all tell us every year we get crushed on the draft. I was telling a story the other day on the morning show about Quay Walker. I think we all got a piece of Quay Walker under 45.5 or whatever.
Yep.
It went down to 32.5, and then he went in the top 25.
Yep. First linebacker to go as well. Yep.
There's no defense against the information. That's the problem. I mean, that's really the bugaboo of the draft betting cycle. Information gets out and there's only one-way action, and it's mostly from sharp people, a lot of people that watch this show. So I think these books are in a holding pattern, and you're not going to see all the candy in the candy store that you've seen over the past few years.
Yeah, even in the year that the draft was in Vegas, Will, like I remember we were out there, and like they only posted things maybe a couple of days before the draft was going to be held. But I look at it like this, like post it. Take the bet. I mean, look how many times, a couple of years ago, we're like, oh, the CJ Stroud's going to be number 1. Oh, Bryce Young's going to be number 1. Like there were like 3 different, or the year that Trevon Walker went right with the Jags. Like so many different players were rumored to be the number 1 pick. Like you're good based on when the information comes out. People aren't always going to win, and you know what? If they do win, they've got money where they're going to come back and they're going to spin it right through the registers again. So, like, I don't get the whole "woe is me, we can't book this, we're gonna lose on this." Yeah, you're gonna lose on this, but they're going to come back because they had a good experience and they're going to give it right back to you.
Yeah, Charles Cross, Anthony Richardson, we're still paying off some of those, some of the bad information you get. Just because you get
Charles Cross
information
was
doesn't
definitely
mean it's
gonna
right.
Charles Cross was going what, top 10 or
Wasn't getting past the Panthers at 7, I think is the bet a couple of us made that did not. He did get past the Panthers. Spoiler alert. Yeah, but to your point, take a 300. If you look, $300 limit. Some people say, oh, $300. They'll thumb their nose. I'm a sharp. I want to bet $1,000. $300 is going to satisfy 95% of people. And you know what? If you take a couple of bets at the 300, you move the number, you've got the information. So I agree. It's just, it's a little bit of, there's fear, but there's a little bit of laziness too, where they just don't want to put somebody in charge of like just monitoring the bets and putting a reasonable number out. And to your point, some of these books, they'll just put it up for a day or two and then take it down just to say, we had it up, just so people can't say, well, this book didn't even book the draft. No, we booked it. Well, how long do you have it up for? Well, 24 hours. Okay, great. That doesn't really help people. So yeah, it's gotten tough.
There is one market, guys. I think Will Campbell is the first offensive lineman drafted, which he's now the slight underdog. I think that we came with the combine, and the kid from Missouri who tested well is now the favorite to go, I think, for the Patriots somewhere early in this draft, Jacksonville at 5. I think Will Campbell's still the guy to go to be the first offensive lineman taker. I'm going to wait to bet that mark because I feel like as more draft information like we get by the day, like that's going to fluctuate back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I can wait to possibly get a better number if there's more mock drafts to come out next couple of weeks after pro days and whatnot that have Will Campbell dropping. So that's a market to pay attention to. Will Campbell for its first offensive lineman drafted.
Oh, there will be more mock drafts. Who are you? These guys love mock drafts.
Have we done we should do a Bear Bets mock draft. We should just do one together.
That would be fun.
We should only do one, though. Like some of these guys do 8 or 9 mocks. And they're like, see, I told you in version 3, I had that. You're like, shut up. You know, there's
Sammy,
a lot of mocks.
Sam, are the Bears
let's do a Bear Bets mock, and we'll put it out like 3 days before the draft or something. Like once we absorb all of the information, that'll be fun. Let's do that.
Sammy, Ashton Jeanty to the Bears. What do you think after the Joe Thuney trade? Are we in on that market?
I don't think they're dumb enough to do that anymore. I don't. I mean, I think the old regime, they have so many weaknesses, and they have guys that they need to play right away. And I guess Jeanty would, but that's, the Rashawn Salams and the Anthony A-Train Thomases of the world. Like those guys never worked out. And I think most running backs that go in the top 10 don't work out. Now Gibbs, of course, is maybe the exception to the rule, but they have a bunch of needs on that team, especially on the lines. I mean, I know they get Thuney and they get Jackson, but they still need line depth on both sides of the ball. So I don't know. I mean, the Bears also went from 4-1 to 2-1 after bringing in Thuney. The Saints at 9-1 makes sense for Jeanty. I think that's a decent look, but Jerry wants him too. So I have no idea, but if I was the Bears, I would not take him.
Would the Raiders say we can't get our quarterback? So same thing as last year where we can't get a quarterback. So you know what? We'll just take the best, shiniest toy on offense and we'll get Bowers. And they go for Jeanty. Pete Carroll's an old school guy. You build around a running back. The old school, the running backs, have they had a moment? Have they made a comeback with Barkley's resurgence? What Henry did for the Ravens, what Jacobs did for the Packers, Gibbs' impact. So could you sell that on, all right, we can't get our quarterback, so let's just get the best team around that, and we'll put Jeanty with Bowers, and at least we'll be exciting. At least we'll have some players once we do get the quarterback. I don't know. I think it's a reach at 6. There's so many good running backs. There's 8-10 running backs, which I would love to have on my team. The Caleb Johnsons, the kid from Carolina. You go down the line, there's a bunch of good ones.
Dylan Sampson, both Ohio State kids.
Yeah. I mean,
so many good ones.
The Kansas kid is good. I think that's a teams have to decide. Is it worth taking Jeanty at early or taking someone in the second round after we get a defensive tackle or defensive line, because this draft is very strong at those positions. Look, the running back discussion is interesting, guys. I don't know if the running back market is back. I mean, Derrick Henry got $9 million last season. It wasn't like he got the Saquon Barkley deal. But I think it's very clear if you have the pieces in place on offense, offensive line, quarterback, wide, all those places in place, adding Saquon Barkley can make a big difference. But if you're the Raiders, Jeanty, what does Jeanty do to your team? You still need a better offensive line. You need a quarterback. You need some wide receivers. You still have so many pieces that you have to get better. That drafting Jeanty, you're going to waste the first 3 years of his career building an offensive line around him.
And then
that's basically your career length as a running back, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Exactly. And then they turn on him too in Vegas. They'd say he's a bust because it's always 3rd and 7 because there's no line.
Correct.
And he can't run. It's a fascinating market, but this is the state of the draft right now. This is the most exciting conversation. Who will take Ashton Jeanty? We need positional numbers. I need 5.5, 6.5 on Will Campbell. I want a number on Colston Loveland, who I think is going to be one of these risers, the
I'm curious.
huge tight end from Michigan. You know, I was listening to a podcast the other day. Somebody was like, "Oh, he's not a top 10 pick." Why not? He's 6'6", 250, can catch anything, goes out and blocks the hell out of guys. I want these over-unders, Bear. I want the individual over-unders on guys, and then we can really start to make some bets.
Yeah, and that's what Geoff was talking about earlier with Greg, talking about Loveland maybe going to the Colts as a tight end. But yeah, the positional numbers. Here, I threw this out at Greg is, well, more likely as quarterbacks being selected. 2, 3, or 4 in the first round. And I say we get freaky at 4 because you know Sanders and Ward are going to go. The chances Jackson Dart works his way into the first round, and the chances maybe Tyler Shough works his way into the first round. People throwing out there, well, Bo Nix did well as an older quarterback. Maybe Shough could be the same thing, an older guy. And do you think there's a chance we get 3 or 4?
I think 3's a heavy favorite.
Yeah,
I would agree.
I think 3 is probably right, but so let's just say that Ward and Sanders go somewhere in the top 6. Let's just put the Raiders in there at 6. Where does Jackson Dart go? Is Pittsburgh going again to like a quarterback at 2021? Are they going the Kenny Pickett route, or taking like the next guy that's available, even though he was like the first guy available that year? I mean, I just think that the market for the quarterback, I don't know where it is. Everyone always says every draft, like someone will trade to 32, what the Ravens did, right? For Lamar Jackson, because that adds the extra year on the contract. But 2 things here. One is that if the quarterback is that good, you're going to pay him presumably before that 5th year anyways, right? If he's that good of a quarterback, your franchise saver, you're going to trade. And 2, like no one does it. How many examples are there of teams trading to 32? 1, the Ravens. So I don't know who the 3rd team is. I know there was a mock draft out this week to put Shedeur, Cam, and Jackson Dart 1, 2, 3, which I think is a little silly.
Wait, whoa. 1, 2, 3 overall?
Yeah, it feels like a pandering mock draft, but it is what it is.
Get out of here.
I think the Giants
immediately never read that again.
Newspaper?
I think it was, I don't know the exact person, but someone, I saw it. It's there. It's
Mitchell Schwartz.
Person. It's not Mitchell Schwartz. I think he's
too busy live
Yeah,
tweeting the golf, trying to get Max home.
Sounds like someone who might not even have been a journalism major to put that draft out.
You have to be a journalism major to talk about journalism, by the way. So nonetheless, now the 5 inside jokes in a row have ruined my train of thought. Nonetheless, I
was talking about 3 quarterbacks, go 3 or 4.
I just don't know.
You said 1, 2, or 3.
I just don't know who the 3rd for Dart is. If we just think 2 go in the top 6, essentially, where's the next spot for quarterback? That's the question I have.
Yeah, it would take a trade. I mean, if you go to 25 and go down, Houston, no. Rams, maybe Rams. Ravens, no. Lions, no. Commanders, no. Bills, no. Chiefs, no. Eagles, no. So It would take either the Rams to find Stafford's heir apparent or a team to trade up.
Or the Titans could trade down enough in a few times where, all right, we don't want to pick at 1, but can we trade down to like 6 or 9 and pick Dart there? I mean, there are different scenarios, so who knows?
All right. More pressing before we get to the NFL draft. We've got this little thing called the NCAA Tournament. Selection Sunday is inching upon us, and it's kind of, I shouldn't say, I don't necessarily think it's Duke and Auburn versus the field. Like, I mean, there are, I think, those bets out there where you can make Duke and Auburn versus the field. Like, I would probably bet the no on that. I mean, I have a nice Auburn future from preseason that's probably going to go in the CLB dumpster, I would imagine, by the time the championship game rolls around. But you could probably make a case for, I don't know if we can say maybe 10 teams can win, but I think if you tell me Houston won, Florida won, who else am I missing?
You buy Texas Tech, Iowa State, those kind of teams?
Iowa State,
Not
I
really.
don't. I don't buy Iowa State. Like, I think they're probably about 16, maybe Texas Tech. I'm not sure about Alabama anymore. Tennessee, I'm not there, but I think
defense. You can't bet on a team that just can't get a stop. Sorry, you just can't do that.
But so I don't know. I'd probably be looking to bet the no on on Duke and Auburn versus the field, and maybe what I would do is, being that I have the nice ticket on Auburn, maybe I just I find it a good price on Duke, and maybe I bet that. But I think if you're looking at what Duke, Houston, Texas Tech,
Duke and Houston could be enough.
Duke and Houston could be enough. Where do you guys stand on St. John's? Because it's like I want to root for them. I love Pitino. They seem like they're a very square team to be. A lot of names are thrown out there. Feels like it ultimately might be throwing money. At some point, they're just going to have trouble scoring, don't you think, Will?
6 would be a stretch. Winning 6 and winning and cutting down the nets would be a stretch. I think 4 and they make a Final Four, but I just think the free throws are going to get them at some point. I mean, how many of these games, you're not going to blow everybody away. And if you're in close games and you can't make free throws, eventually you're going to run into a team that can keep you off the glass. And now you look at it from the other perspective and say, you know what, if they can make some threes, they're as dangerous as anybody. But for 6 games, I just think there's too much of a flaw, too much of a hole in the shooting. Now, look, if they get the East region and they get to go Providence in the first 2 games, then New Jersey the second 2 games, and basically have 4 games where they quasi home games, could they end up in a Final Four? And then who knows? Yes, but I just think 6 is a stretch just because of their whole Sammy.
Will, sorry, Sammy. Will, so I think the team with the worst 3-point percentage to win a tight championship recently was the Louisville Dino team.
Interesting.
Does that matter now? Does that matter more now because the game has moved to 3-pointers? Can we look at that when he won in 13? I think it was 13, right? And say he won that year doing it that way as well.
It matters, but again, I just think, Sammy, I think the free throws are an issue. I watched him at Seton Hall the other day. It was ugly. And look, I'll be rooting for him too. I think as much as Pitino can be polarizing, I think the fact that he's an old school coach, New York, St. John's, they haven't been in the mix in a while. There's a lot to like about this story. I just think once you get to these better teams, 6 in a row is going to be tough.
It is very tough to have a team of brick throwers at the free throw line. It's nauseating to all hell when you have a team that's 9 of 20 at the free throw line and you're ready to rip your TV off the wall. We've all been there. At least 4 of us have been there. Wisconsin, a nation leading 83% from the free throw line. Yeah. Isn't that crazy? So those are the teams you want to pay attention to. If you're in these coin flip battles with yourself when you get your bracket or you're making bets, Wisconsin, 83%, Gonzaga, 80%, Michigan State, 79%, UConn, almost 80%, Duke, almost 80%. These are teams that win games at the line. And as easy as it is to lose one at the line, these teams always knock down those free throws end of games, the ones that we just talked about.
You mentioned Michigan State, and I want to bring them because I didn't bring them up just before in terms of the national title contenders. They feel like a team that is going to be a very quote unquote wise guy type team to make a run, to maybe get to the Final Four, maybe to win the title. Does it remind you a little bit of the year they were the 2 seed? They got bounced in the first round, everyone was high on Michigan State. We talked about St. John's and their inability to shoot free throws and maybe struggle from the field. And Geoff, you brought up the Louisville team that struggled to hit threes and wound up winning. At some point, does their 3-point deficiency catch up with them? Maybe if they get a bad draw, teams knocking down threes, or maybe they're not getting a whistle like they would during normal Big Ten play. Like Michigan State, if you're looking ahead to potentially filling out a bracket pool and you're looking to be a little contrarian and be a little bit different, fading Michigan State might not be the worst. As much as I love Tom Izzo and I love this team, the chemistry that they have and the group that they have, probably not the best bet you can make. Crickets.
Well,
no one wants
to touch.
Jeff hates Michigan State. I was waiting on Jeff.
I just will say this about the Big Ten teams. I've watched too much Big Ten basketball this season. I see why they don't play well in the tournament. There's almost none of them I want to back at any point during the tournament this year. I can't wait to fade a lot of them. Michigan being number 1 come tournament time. They just play a style of basketball I don't think translates very well. It's why Wisconsin, Sammy mentioned like the foul shooting, they also score a ton of points. Like they play an up-tempo style of game that I think ends up winning a lot of times in the tournament. Can you fill up the bucket with 3-pointers when it matters? Can you be up-tempo when it matters? Yeah, defense does matter. Of course it does. But some of these teams, the Big Ten, just struggle so mightily to create their own shot, to get to the foul line, right? You get into the foul line means you are aggressive to the basket That's important, in my opinion, to winning championships. And teams I want to back. I don't want to back a bunch of teams that just play a style of offense that doesn't get to the rim, doesn't create chaos, doesn't try to make plays at the basket. So a lot of Big Ten teams I don't think do that well enough. So I'm off of a lot of them. Just for that reason. I see why this season, watching a lot of Big Ten basketball, being an Oregon fan now, why the lack of success happens in the postseason.
But every Michigan State conversation comes back to Izzo. And I'm not January, February Izzo guy. Let's get that clear. I'm not like a mouth breather, but that is one of the best second day coaches in the history of the tournament. And what I mean by that is if they win on Thursday or Friday, you get them in the hotel ballroom and they tape up the floor and they out scheme their way to win that Saturday, Sunday game. There's a lot of guys like that over the year. Brad Stevens was outstanding at that Saturday, Sunday. Izzo, Patino, especially if Patino's got the Tony Montana white suit on. I mean, I'm not betting against that. But there are some coaches in that second game of a weekend in the tournament that can just out scheme you to death. And the way they play defense in East Lansing, I mean, 5th in the nation right now. That has to count for something.
Talking about a Big Ten team that has some potential. Maryland, they don't have a lot of depth, but a lot of size, a lot of shooting. That's a team who was a good winning in Michigan at Michigan. Was it Wednesday night? I mean, that's a team. There's some upside there. I don't know what line they're going to be. I saw a 7 seed. That seems like a little disrespectful.
Really low.
Yeah, I thought more like 4 or 5. That to me, that's a good team. Sweet 16, and who knows from there.
Did you see the stat during that game, by the way, that they had their first bench point in like 3 weeks? To your point about depth,
no depth.
They just don't have any depth. Yeah.
I mean, and I get people, you talk about shortening your rotation during the tournament as well. So does that necessarily matter? But Will, that brings up a good point. I was going to follow up and ask you guys, like, is there a team out there that you might be looking for a price maybe to make the Final Four that you can get right now, or maybe you're looking to wait and see who they get drawn? Is there another team out there besides like I threw VCU out there last week? I threw Ole Miss out there last week, because I think in terms of like the SEC, I'm going off on a tangent here, but with two different things. Like, people talking so much about the SEC tournament, like, I'm curious, like, I'm sure somebody will, like, what will the number be on number of SEC teams to make the Final Four? Like you're assuming Auburn and Florida will be number 1 seeds. Tennessee will probably be a 2. Maybe Alabama will be a 2. Like, I'd be curious to see what under 1.5 would be in terms of SEC teams making the Final Four.
Can we finally get a year where St. Mary's is a different St. Mary's, or is this the usual? They lose in the second round. They've beaten Gonzaga, beat them twice pretty handily. We'll see what happens in a likely third rematch here, a third matchup in the WCC final for the 90th straight year. But they're good. They can control pace. They're on my radar, depending on the matchup. They're going to be trendy, but this UC San Diego team, it's very hard to start from where they were in KenPom and get up into the 30s. They play really good defense. Again, they're going to be trendy. We'll see if they even get in. If they don't win their tournament, they might have to win to get in. But if they're on an 8-9 line, they can really slow the pace and really get into you defensively. So those are at least a couple teams, Sammy, that I have my eye on. Doesn't sound like you're much of a Gale fan.
I put Mary's in my Elite 8 20 times, guys. I can't. And they always break up with me at the end of the night, and I got to take the check. I get it. I won't do it. Here's a team. I like Clemson. I think that is a sleeping giant.
Last year.
ACC in the last 3 tournaments has had the best expected win over return. And what that means is every tournament, the nerds like me lay out games that every conference should win. And believe it or not, the SEC has been the worst multi-bid conference the last 3 years. The ACC has been number 1. SEC has been the worst. I could pull the numbers up real quick.
Doesn't surprise me.
I want to say, here we go.
Balance is what, a 2 and a 3?
Tennessee always loses early too.
Yep.
So last 3 tournaments, the SEC had 30 expected wins. They only won 22. Conversely, the ACC last 3 tournaments, 17 expected wins. They won 33 games. So that's your Dukes, your North Carolinas. I mean, the NC State run certainly helped when they went to the Final Four.
And Miami getting to the Final Four as well.
Miami too. There you go. Miami, Clemson. Clemson can make a run. I do think the ACC should always be considered, especially when they're a little unsexy, because nobody's talking about the ACC right now.
No.
Watch out for a team like Clemson.
I'm looking at
I wouldn't
Will's.
put
You see-
Miami in this year. I know they did it 2 years ago. I would not pencil Miami into the Elite Eight, the Final Four.
No, I would not think that the Canes, but the big one on Saturday, big one coming up with the Canes and the two Final Four teams from the last couple of years, NC State and Miami.
And I think NC
in the
State's not even
regular
going to make
season.
the ACC tournament. Forget the NCC tournament. I don't even think. I think they're disqualified from the ACC because it's only the top 15 or 16 now. So yeah, that might be defense might be optional in that game. That might be a good overlook.
Do you think UC San Diego can make an 8-9 game?
I'm not
Well-
sure. They tend to give the short straw to these mid majors, and they tend to
That's a weak
match them up
conference,
against
too.
each other, and like one of them gets knocked off, so one of them can go home early. I don't know. 8-9. It's funny. Once you're the 8-9, you'd rather be the 10, 11, 12 because who knows? You might get an
Exactly. That's what I'm
upset.
saying.
If you're an 8-9, you're definitely getting a 1 if you win a game. If you're the 10, 11, 12, who knows? You get a 4, and then you might get a 5, or you might get a 13 in that second round. So who knows?
Speaking of 8-9s, like I think a lot of people are putting UConn on that 8-9 line. This is a team probably you want to fade in, certainly in the first round this year. Right? This is not the same UConn team that we've seen the last couple of years. Defensively, they're not the same, and this is certainly a team that I think a lot of people are. They won the last couple of titles. It's tournament time. Hurley will have them ready to go. I shouldn't say probably. I'll be looking to fade UConn. Whether I ultimately do or not, depending on the matchup, is another thing. But yeah, I can't see UConn making a run as an 8 or a 9 seed. Like I love knocking 1 seeds out early, but I can't see UConn doing that this year, Sammy. Right?
They don't protect the rim. I don't know if that's important to you, Bear. It's important.
It's very
to me.
important to me.
Believe it or not, without Donovan Clingan, they're just not that good around the rim anymore. It's amazing. And they also, they had 2 elite point of attack defenders. You think about Stephon Castle last year, and the year before it was Tristan Newton, who were just outstanding at stopping the point of attack, right? Top of the key. So if you protect the top of the arch and the rim, you're in a good spot. And that's what UConn did to back-to-back titles. There was another team, Utah State, I would love on the 10 line, but they're on the 9 right now. I see most places have them on the 9. I hate the 8-9 because I have even Gonzaga. I could put through a couple games, but not on line 9. I hate the 8-9. When you see your sleeper on 8 or 9, it really sucks. It sucks the wind out of the room.
The bracket matrix, by the way, has San Diego as a 12 seed. That's their average from all the mock drafts.
Where's Gonzaga if you have this matrix available?
8.
Yeah. See, I need them 7 or 10.
So
you have it in front of you, Jeff. Do they have Drake making it if they don't win the Missouri Valley, or do they have to win to get in?
It just has what they're all the brackets like. They're 12 right now. It has them as a 12.
That
comfortably
tells
in
me,
if they
well,
lose.
they got to win it.
Yeah, that's
They have them as a 12, and as it's bolded for the conference winner essentially. So that's what. The 8-9s are Illinois, BYU, Gonzaga, Connecticut, Creighton, Vanderbilt, New Mexico, Utah State.
BYU is going to be higher than an 8 or a 9, aren't they?
I don't think so.
That's just I'm just going off of this. It's updated March 5th, so I don't know if many changes are made. This has like 100 brackets on here. So.
And remember, BYU can't play on Sunday, so sometimes that factors into you have to move them to a specific seed or a specific day because
that's crazy. That's I forgot. Yeah,
that's one team that you just mentioned. Not to sit here and name every team. Illinois, I think, was 6th or 7th in terms of odds to win the title. I don't know, a month, 6 weeks ago. They've had a terrible year, injuries, illnesses, bad 3-point shooting. Their opponents are shooting threes well. That team is better than their record. They're better than they showed. If they can ever make some threes, and Sammy, I think that's a team where I had you on my podcast maybe a month or so ago. There's some more talent there than their record indicates.
No doubt. They have a lottery pick in Yakachonis, who's going to leave and go to the draft. I think he's a top 10 pick. They've got a lot of young talent. And Underwood, let's give him credit. He took a team to the Elite 8 last year, and they were hanging with UConn for about 8 minutes. Give or take. Then UConn went on that 30-0 run.
I think it was tied at half.
I think I had the first half, and I remember throwing my remote at work. So I don't think it was close at half. I could be wrong. I remember I had a good number, and then I'm like, 30-0 run right here, right in my eye hole. He has 2 guys from that team last year. There was an Elite 8 team. They beat Iowa State, then they lost to UConn. He turned the entire roster over. They definitely have more talent. They're younger, and they play with their food. But if the threes are falling, I mean, we've seen them go to Oregon and win big. We've seen them. Did they just go to Michigan? Or what was the other team?
Yeah, they killed Michigan in Ann Arbor on
Yeah,
Sunday.
went into Ann Arbor and just beat the snot out of them. So if the threes are falling, of course they could win any game. But the threes are not always falling, if you know what I'm saying.
Okay, so this game was 23 all with 1:20 left in the half. UConn, Illinois. And the next thing you know, it's 28-23 at half. And I think this is when the run occurred where it eventually was 53-23. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I was gonna say, wasn't like a
stand
17-0 run coming out of the half?
So I did cover the first half, but definitely didn't cover the full game.
Well, so before we get out of here, this is a final reminder, Sammy, you should talk about this because it's important. A lot of these dogs, if you like them in the tournament, the first half might be the better play because as the game gets longer, the favorite takes over, the threes start hitting. Do you find yourself taking a lot more dogs just first half, especially in the first couple of days, than you would maybe full game?
We're talking conference tournaments, Geoff?
No, sorry, we're talking March Madness because we're talking.
Well, I mean, it's a neutral site game either way. So I mean, it's similar strategy. I know a lot of people that play the dogs in the first half for sure. I mean, I don't know that it's like that much more money wise, like financial, but I will tell you this. Let me answer this a different way. I have talked to a lot of guys that are playing a lot more first half unders than full game unders because two things kill you in the tournament: fouls and the dreaded O word, overtime. Yeah. I mean, I go back and think about all the times I've had big bets on unders and it's a dead under and then somebody starts fouling with 90 seconds and you get 17 points in that minute 30 and you're just ready to go insane. And then of course overtime kills almost every under. So I think it's more of an adjustment by the wise guys to kind of get away from the full game under and look at that first half under.
Especially these early start times. You look at, we talk about this in some of our group chats, Bear, where, I mean, you see it all the time, 11 a.m., noon Eastern start. There's nobody in the building. There's max intensity on defense. A lot of times that under 12 timeout, it's like, 8-4 or something. It's hard. These guys are night creatures. They eat late, they play late, they sleep late. When you're playing at noon Eastern, a lot of time it just takes a little bit to get the cobwebs out. You see a lot of slow starts offensively in these tournaments.
Except Indiana State, Southern Illinois.
They just hit another 3, Southern Illinois. That's like 12 now.
They average like 7 a game. This guy just hit a set shot from 3, just like a set shot, a 23-foot set shot.
I want to bring up one more thing.
Arch Madness.
I want to bring up one more thing if I can. We've turned Geoff into a full-on degenerate.
Yes.
Like we got him betting women's basketball, spring training baseball. Like Geoff, did you bet all day on Tuesday, like from 11 a.m. till the end of the night?
I've looked up. I've bet on 8 spring. Will sent over 8 spring training games over the last week. I actually went to bed Tuesday night. I was up. That was the late night. That was the Oregon game. Oh, I was up late that night. Last night I went to bed a little bit sooner. But yeah, man. I mean, you guys, I trust you guys. I just gamble responsibly. It's certainly, except one of the fades I do is not responsible, but the rest of it is very responsible. And if you guys send it over, man, I trust you guys. I got women's college basketball firing right now. I got some Missouri Valley Conference, just trying to live wager my way out of this terrible under that we're not going to hit. So
how about we took the Lady Vols on Wednesday and then Geoff jumps in with like a first half live wager because the shots weren't falling and that gets home. But he did commit. He is due for some scoring here. How about on Monday we had the Orioles in spring training and he starts counting as a winner. I'm going to buy dinner with this.
Right.
And then it ends
no,
up
I didn't do that. That was Bear who said
no, that was
a winner.
You said
I said I couldn't afford dinner anymore. That's what I said.
Here's what happened.
I'm not watching the game. Vividly. I'm not watching the game.
We were up 5-0 in the spring training game. And Geoff texted the group, looks like I can eat dinner tonight.
Yeah.
And then they made it 5-5 and we eventually tied. So nobody won or lost, but you stamped it.
But Bear's watching these games, texting us the updates. It's his fault for watching spring training.
It's my fault for actually watching a game that we have money on.
I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you watch spring training baseball. I mean, I
very easily you throw it on, it's background noise, and
when we need a guy numbered 113 to get a base hit for us to win a wager. Maybe we're doing a little bit too much.
Dude, you should have
been good though. Baseball's been strong.
The guy that the Orioles wind up throwing didn't have the name on the back of his jersey. I think it was like it was like number 79, or it was just like wow, it was just amazing. But
and how about the kid on second base? It was 2 out or 1 out.
Yep.
bottom of the ninth, we're either going to push or win because there's no extra innings and we're tied at the point. So it's all right. We're base hit from winning this thing. And it's like a routine pop up, and the kid just screams around third like it's like there's 2 outs or it's going to fall. And of course, it gets caught, it gets doubled up, and we sit there. We end with a push after 3.5 hours of just headaches.
And then there's that guy. Has anybody seen that reliever on the Rockies who does like backflips after
the
he
jumps?
strikes people out?
Yeah.
So my buddy lost a wager on that guy. He like struck the guy out, did a backflip, and he goes, "I'm going to kill that guy." I'm like, "Go, relax, like relax. Spring training, deep breath."
Anybody got any baseball bets like for the season?
I got Tigers over big time.
Tigers over.
Yeah, 83.5.
I don't disagree with it, but is anybody not on the Red Sox? So I think they're going to be good too.
Red Sox and Reds. Everyone's on the Red Sox.
Everybody. And I see why. I'm not even opposed to it, it always makes you nervous where everybody's on the same thing.
Very nervous.
I will be fading the White Sox every day until otherwise.
That's not nice, Geoff.
I like
it. Might be square. I still think the Dodgers. I think DraftKings sells 103.5 on the Dodgers. That's a win or two too low. I mean, how are that team not winning 106, 107 games? You could tell me injuries. They had 1 million injuries last year, and they still, had a great season. Then they added like a whole. I mean, they've got like 3 different starting rotations with Sasaki and I mean, they got like 15 deep with pitchers. All this offensive talent. I think they're like minus 150 to be the NL 1 seed at DraftKings. I think that's playable. I know some people are going to listen and say, I don't want to tie my money till October. It's early March.
That's actually a great
I get
bet.
that, but I think that's a
1
good
seed.
Bet.
The Dodgers
that's a
MVP is now going to pitch. The MVP is now going to pitch this season.
Crazy.
Somebody texted me the other day that he bet the Angels to be the worst team in the league at 30-1, and I would have never even thought about it because it's probably the White Sox or the Rockies, right? Maybe the Marlins. I know Bear loves betting against the Marlins. The Angels. I mean, the Angels with an injury or two, especially if Trout goes down, which he always does. I mean, that could be a 100 loss team, and they're 30-1 to have the worst record. I'm just saying.
When they put the Trout RBI number up, we got to take the under, right? I keep waiting for that.
It's low. It's lower.
It's up already.
2.5 this year. Yeah. It's lower than you'd want it to be.
The homers are 25. They're basically telling you as long as he gets 300 something at bats, that's what they're projecting at. Where if he gets 400 at bats, you're a dog to lose these over. So they're kind of onto you with these unders with Trout always getting hurt.
But I did play unders. You look at his last few years and it's like
never plays.
Really, he's going to go over that. I don't know. Even with the position change, I don't think he's likely. Will, you had a couple of, I think, conference tournaments that you were looked into. Circling back to, we're all over the place. I'm like driving the bus all over the road down the wrong way. But were there a couple of conference tournaments you had your eye on?
Colgate plus 550. Now this starts Thursday night. They play in the quarters against Army. And they're 6.5, 7-point favorite. They've dominated this tournament. It's not the same team, but they would get American if American wins in the next round, which American's not a big favorite. They're only like a 3.5, 4-point favorite. So to me, Colgate at plus 550 to make a final. I think that they're live. Again, I don't want to talk about too much of this stuff because by the time people listen to this, it might be dried up. But Queens also plays Thursday night. They're 22-1 to win their conference. All they got to do is win 2 games.
Dog tonight against Lipscomb.
They're a big dog, but they beat Lipscomb at Lipscomb. And both these teams shoot a ton of threes. Both shoot like 27 threes per game. The problem is Lipscomb makes a lot of them. Queens doesn't. But if you get a hot night with Queens who defends well, they do a lot of things well. They just don't shoot well, but they do take a ton of threes. You get a hot night from 3 at 22-1 where you only need 2 wins. I think there's some meat on the bone there.
I can just envision it now. Geoff, when are you coming to bed? Not now. I'm watching Colgate.
Geoff is living the life right now. The wife is gone. The kids are gone.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Geoff's just walking around in flip-flops and gym shorts, a T-shirt and a backwards hat. We're getting the air fryer out, just playing with the dog. Geoff's in heaven.
I need to go drive by Queens again today for some good luck. Queens College. Yeah, 1 square block in Charlotte.
I wonder if there's a pep rally.
I'll get it. They'll send me an email. Queens Athletics will send me an email. I'll check.
Pride of Charlotte, North Carolina, Queens University. Gentlemen, that was fun. We'll do it again soon. Appreciate you guys. May all your bets cash. I know I'll update. Copenhagen did score a goal against Chelsea, so under a half in the second half. I promised everybody I would give an update on the soccer that I bet in the A's. Yeah, it was a loser. So We'll have to chase what the afternoon starts now. Guys, take care, bud.
All right, Bear. That was a gambling group chat that went a little heavy there, but we like talking about all the sports and we wager on all the sports. And now we're going to get to our best bets. You're not going to be here next week. So we need a very good best bet.
Believe me, I'm not like going anywhere fun or doing anything fun. That's for
no,
sure.
you're not.
I would much rather be doing this than what I will be doing.
So let's hear your best bet then, since you will not be here next week. It's a big one, I think.
Yeah, we threw a dart last week with VCU to reach the Final Four at 50-1. So just because of the time of the year, like I don't know what games are going to be going on. So let's throw another dart at a baseball future, and it's Tanner Bybee of the Guardians to lead Major Leagues in strikeouts. It's a guy who he was second in the Rookie of the Year voting in 2023, his first full year in the bigs last year. At times he struggled working deep into games, and the Guardians had a short hook with him, but he still wound up with nearly 10 strikeouts per nine, 187 strikeouts. I think he wound up like 16th or 17th in the league in strikeouts. But again, upside here is huge. He kind of fits, I think, in that Cole Reagans category where you could take a big leap this year for a team, I think, that's got some pretty decent pitching in Cleveland. So again, do you expect to win an 80-1 shot? No, but I think there are certainly worse bets that I've made and worse bets you can be made. But I think Bybee at 80-1 to lead the league in strikeouts. Like, Can Scooble do it again? Can the other guys near the top do it again? Who knows? Maybe those guys take a step back. Bybee takes a big step up. 80-1, maybe we're in the mix.
I have trouble though with some just overs for pitchers, Bear, in general. No, it's not an over, obviously, because these guys,
right,
they just get hurt. Like,
yep.
I mean,
like, and on health.
They just do. They also work in sometimes, just a little summer rest, a little short. It's not it's the IL now, right? IL, right? Injury list.
Yeah, 10-day IL, right?
10-day IL. Yeah, it used to be the DL, obviously. I can't wait for baseball. The gambling on spring training, probably not healthy for me, but has been very fun to get to do and get excited for the season. All right, I'm going to go back to football for my best bet. Try to find some college basketball for you. I'll tell you what, Bear, I can't wait to fade some of these teams come tournament time. Michigan, Tennessee, Arizona, some of our favorites, Bear, but you can't wager on that quite yet. So I'm going to take the Giants.
That's like the Mount Rushmore of NCAA tournament fading right there. It's great.
I know. I can't wait. All right, my best bet will be the New York Giants to draft first overall. It's minus 105. Different.
Joe Shane going to pull the trigger and make the trade.
Well, I think no matter what happens next week in free agency, they're going to have to do this. Could they get Aaron Rodgers? Absolutely. Could Kirk Cousins be an option for them if he gets released? Absolutely. But that doesn't really buy the franchise time, right? These coaches and front office, they need to buy themselves time with a young option at quarterback. So something to look forward to. And in a draft where the Giants are desperate for a quarterback and there's not a quarterback that the tight ends have to have, right? Cam Ward and Joe Sanders have enough warts where the Titans will feel comfortable trading out of that spot. And the Titans need a lot of good football players, Bear. They just don't have a great roster. The draft picks would be hugely important for them. They could get Travis Hunter at 3, for example. So Giants to draft number 1, minus 105. I'll hit that right now.
Yeah, I like it. And we, as you said, when we were talking to Greg earlier in the show, like if the Titans get an offer, like where they can trade back to 3 or whatever, pick up another first or a second rounder this year and another first or a second round.
Absolutely.
Like that is like if I'm Tennessee, like I need to like sit on my hands and bite my lip because it's like I don't want to show how excited I am that somebody actually wants to come up to number 1 for one of these guys because I think this is a draft where you don't want to be picking 1, 2, or 3. You want to be picking further down. I mean, the depth of this, this is a meat and potatoes type draft with
absolutely
some defensive players and such. And it's a bad year to need a quarterback, but
it's a bad year to need, I think, like really elite game-changing players. It's not a draft, I think, that you can have game-changing players, obviously, but there's not those guys that are.
Yeah, like, Abdul Carter is a game-changing player,
right.
But I know what
Travis Hunter is too. Like, there's just not a lot of, in my mind, as of now, potential all-pro type players in this draft. To your point about meat and potatoes, there's a lot of those guys in this draft.
Yeah, you want a nice, solid wide receiver like Emeka Egbuka of Ohio State. He's right there for you. Like there are a lot of guys like that, and
absolutely, yeah.
So it's gonna. I can't wait for some of these places to start posting some things like Sammy was saying in the group chat as well. We always get excited when you When you get information and you just kind of waiting, I want to bet, and there's nowhere to bet right now. But
Yes.
hopefully soon. And enjoy the week. Enjoy you hold down the fort next week with Sammy and Will.
Got it, buddy.
I'll be happy to listen to see you guys get on next week to kick around some conference tournaments or whatever else it's going to be. Appreciate everyone out there again for listening on Apple, Spotify, our YouTube channel, wherever you get your podcasts and your digital media. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe. Thanks to Greg for joining us in the A's. Great stuff from him. Always fun to catch up with Sammy and Will as well. For Geoff, I'm Bear, and remember, the less you bet, the more you lose when you win.